Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the True Words Aren't Beautiful channel and our series on the Just Do Shit philosophy. Today, we are going to talk about the concept of paralysis and impulsiveness, or as my coach used to say, don't think, just go. So, just a little bit of a background here. In order to just do shit, you have to be natural. You do it because it feels right, not because you expect a particular outcome or that you overthink and overanalyze. This is something that you will especially find during a fight or flight response when you get triggered, and the parasympathetic response system in the body puts you into that mode. I have found myself like this for very petty reasons, and that's led to a lot of indecisiveness and the inability to act. Part of that comes from being programmed by my abusive parents to believe that I'm unworthy and I don't know anything and that I should just listen to what they say. But one thing that a good friend of mine taught me before was all parents, shitty parents, good parents, doesn't matter. They don't think of themselves as parents with authority. They don't think of themselves as adults who know what they're supposed to do and are just instructing us, young kids who don't know anything about living life. How they see themselves as is little children or people with childhoods that were stolen from them. They never got a chance to fully have the youth or the childhood that they wanted, or the love and nurturing that they wanted from their parents, who also felt the same way. Most older people do not feel like they're old, but they feel like they're still young souls, young emotionally, but they have gray hairs and wrinkles, and believe that they still deserve to act like kids, but they just have the authority with numbers and experience. So, the fight or flight response and that paralysis. Sometimes I don't know if I should join friends for a movie. Sometimes I don't know if it's a good idea to go to the Monterey Bay Aquarium and just save money instead. Other times I feel like, oh, I don't know if I should buy this pair of pants. Little petty things, not even big decisions, that cause me to freeze and not act because I don't know if it's better to save money. I don't know if it's better to invest in myself. Many times there are many noisy thoughts that come, and we don't listen to ourselves because we have no sense of self. So when you know yourself, you're kind to yourself. You follow what your heart truly calls for. And many times we are taught to ignore ourselves and to not be ourselves because being ourselves does not make money. Being ourselves does not know anything. Being ourselves has no life experience. Being ourselves has had a few shitty experiences, maybe even one or zero. And then everyone says, oh, you know nothing. Don't bother doing anything because you don't know anything. Just listen to me. And that makes you miserable because you're looking for validation, whether it's from the people who say you don't know anything or looking for a way to validate that you're not crazy. Many times because of this, our actions, which should reflect what's in our hearts, these are not reflections of what's in our hearts. These are symptoms of hiding from our hearts because we feel an obligation to do so. We're told it's good for us. We're told it builds character. We're told that if you follow my way, there will be no problems. Well, it just doesn't work that way. You have to follow your own flow. And if you don't know who you are, part of just doing shit is the exploration and discovery of who you are. Just doing shit is a self-discovery, self-exploration, and self-improvement philosophy. It's a self-discipline which begins with being kind to yourself and recognizing yourself and eventually mastering yourself. So I'll tell you a story about when I worked at a call center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was trying to start a new life after my dad had died, and the person I was staying with said that he could get me a job at the call center doing telefundraising. While I was there for a grand total of 1 week of training and did a few hours of cold calls as a telefundraiser, The trainer, his name was Bob, he told us a story about a very, very influential woman, a trans woman, who helped him when it came to his sense of self-worth and self-respect. This story was significant because he said you'll be rejected often when you do call center work. But at the same time, if you have a lot of self-respect, no one will reject you because you respect yourself to know that it's not about you, it's about them. You're just doing your job, and if someone doesn't care for you and someone is rude to you, that's their business, and you don't need to worry about their opinion. So, excuse me while I put on the lisp for this, because it's just a lot funnier the way he did it when he was imitating the trans woman who taught him the story. Said, if the first words that come out of someone's mouth aren't please, and the last words aren't thank you, you don't need them. You know why? Because you are fabulous. So the first thing I want you to think of in the morning when you wake up, fabulous. When you look in the mirror after you take a shower, fabulous. Right before you walk out the door to start your day, fabulous. Don't ever let anyone think that you're not fabulous. And so my instructor just did the exact thing that was taught to him. And very quickly, he never told anyone what was happening, but people just say, hey, you're fabulous. Or, hey, what a fabulous job. Sorry, fabulous. The lisp just comes back because that's what's been programmed into my memory there. Sorry. So, eventually, his inner world started reflecting the outer world, and it made him feel good about himself. Likewise, when you have the outer world, such as your parents and your peers, or some unpleasant people online, or your community, put these ideas in your head, and then you start internalizing them, you put those same ideas out, and everything just comes back into a vicious cycle. You can make that change with all sorts of autosuggestion. So, going on, work on yourself before starting and while doing shit, so that you learn to recognize what is your true authentic self yearning for and what it is in your programming. Taoist wisdom teaches flow, because if you relax, you'll enjoy the ride, but if you resist, you'll end up in the same place anyway, but worn out and tired. Think of jumping into a river. If you get tense and you panic and you try to go against the current or you try to escape, all that's going to happen is you're going to get tired. But if you relax and you breathe, you will have what amounts to a nice trip on a kayak or a raft, whatever it is, whatever you imagine, that will take you where you belong. And you will have fun along the way. I've resisted a lot of times because every time I tried to flow, every time I tried to explore, I listened to people who claimed to be practical. Some of them were very well-intentioned, others were not very well-intentioned. Those who were well-intentioned were my friends who have a very different life path. Those who were not well-intentioned were those who just wanted to make me a clone of them, or basically their little toy poodle, my narcissistic parents. However, you should not be beating yourself up over this, because your paralysis is an involuntary response. We're paralyzed because we have conflicts in our minds and hearts. And what are we supposed to do? What are we yearning for? Those are questions that come. That yearning can make you daydream and resent your current circumstances. It can make you feel like you don't belong here, or that you're just born unlucky and don't have control over your life, or that you don't know what to do to get out. This boredom and imprisonment can cause you to be in a state of fight or flight. When you are stuck and there is an option to advance, you become scared because the prison state is familiar and anything outside those walls of your mind and life is potentially dangerous. At the same time, when stuck, like prisoners in solitary confinement, you lash out and go crazy because you lose sense of yourself, lose connection to life, people, nature, and have no control over your destiny. The pandemic did this to many people, and it ruined my relationship with my ex-girlfriend Dana. You're just not yourself, but at the same time you think that's who you really are. What started out as a well-intentioned practice of solitary confinement by the Quakers, to be alone with your thoughts and God, has become one of the most egregious human rights violations. Solitary confinement drives everyone crazy. It's inhuman. It's terrible. So, just doing shit means exploring, discovering, and creating new habits that become part of your core being. Reboot your programming. Get those prison guards who are telling you, you can't do this, you can't do that. You are this way. No, you're that way. No. Tell them that you thank them for their hard work, but their services are no longer needed. Create those new habits to become part of your core being, starting with just making your bed, cleaning your living space as you go, spending a portion of your day to sit quietly and do nothing, exercising, creating art, whether it's good or bad, doesn't matter, and seek to do good deeds instead of seeking to retaliate, which will make a huge difference. Even just being patient or forgiving someone when you're otherwise inclined to argue or fight is a good deed. Just doing shit curbs your impulsiveness because your actions are more mindful and your heart is authentic, so you don't randomly do something and don't know why, resisting the temptation to be right or to get a kick out of it. Instead, you do something because it feels right and is expressive, like my friend in Germany who makes art out of garbage he finds around town. He doesn't know why he does it, he doesn't know what it's for. He sees a few things, he says, oh, okay, I'll grab that. He and his friend go around and they just arrange things that would otherwise be rubbish on the ground. Some people find it hilarious, some people yell at him saying that he shouldn't be touching the garbage, he should just be throwing it in the bin. But that's their problem, not his. He's literally turning garbage into treasure and art. So, some of the classic Eastern wisdom here comes from the Book of the Five Rings from Miyamoto Musashi, who said, do no useless actions. Just doing shit does not mean you will be active, you'll become a type A person. Just doing shit means being mindful of your actions and being authentic to yourself, your actions reflecting that. And just to add, patience and restraint are themselves actions, because they're a choice to sit tight and hold back instead of being paralyzed by fear, uncertainty, and self-doubt. So, when you worry about what's the right thing, you're wasting time. When you're constantly paralyzed by decisions, making the right decision, you're making a decision to do nothing because you want that burden to be passed. You want to pass that burden on to someone else. Say, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then you say, is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? No. That's the avoidance. That is the fear of screwing up. That's not doing shit. Whereas the impulsiveness is, oh, I'll just say yes to everything. That's the kind of thing that leads you to become resentful when you say yes to taking on more work. When you say yes, when you really want to say no. Our philosophy is not say yes to everything. Our philosophy is say yes more, but not to everything. There are things that you should say yes to because you could be missing out on an opportunity. And there are things you should say no to because you're drawing boundaries. So a couple of days ago, I met up with a friend in this story, for example, where we went to a spontaneous flea market at the Flower Ranch Cafe in my area. It was 9 a.m., so I had first picks. Now, in my current financial situation, I really shouldn't be spending a lot of money, but here I am, and I see a lot of great things. I see a Patagonia blazer. I see a Patagonia fleece. I see a New Balance pair of shoes, my size, like new. And I see a pair of sunglasses. And I spend under $40 to get all of them. I don't know how that happened, but it seemed useful, especially because part of my saying yes more includes 2 trips this weekend and next to the beach and to the mountains. Because I need a break from this environment. I need to spend some time in nature to reflect, invest in myself, and take care of myself. Part of what I used to hate about living in the Philippines was feeling stuck. And here I am choosing not to feel stuck and to realize and remember that the Philippines is not solely Manila, and Manila is not solely my neighborhood. Whether it was when I was living in the slums or the barangays of Mandaluyong, or right by the train tracks in Makati, where everything just felt horrible to me, noisy, dirty, and unpleasant people. So your environment can shape your thoughts, and your thoughts can shape your environment, and those can lead to the paralysis or the impulsiveness to lash out. When I moved to a different environment, which is my new neighborhood in Makati right now, I enjoyed myself more because it's a very artsy community. These are people as well who have a drive to explore and to innovate. On one side, you have the Western sexpats, the older guys with the younger girls, or you have the passport bros looking for local girls. On my side, you have Zoomers and Millennials who are all out to create art or do a bunch of startups and just crawl around the pubs here. That kind of community is infectious in a good way. It reminds me of who I really am, an expressive, creative, but sensitive individual. When I was in another environment, which was basically full of people who were constantly getting drunk and grouchy and didn't like outsiders, that was both a reflection of my state saying, oh, I don't belong here, I don't belong with people like that. But they also pushed those ideas on me because they didn't really have the appreciation for the arts, and they were just too busy with the idea of survival mentality and resilience. And if you're not one of them and you don't speak the language, they have no interest in you. At the same time, there are also a lot of creatives who I never would have otherwise met in that community because I didn't put myself out there. I just thought I would hide myself, just like I disabled social media for 8 years before. I thought, oh, social media is a bad thing, I won't go back on it. It's a bad idea, and they're stealing your data, stealing your information, they can do so much to you. And yet, had I been on social media, had I put the effort to be out there, had I decided to explore instead of limiting myself, I could have met so many people in my own building. I didn't realize they lived in my old building until I saw them hanging out here saying, if you had just been in touch with us, if we had known that we existed, we could have hung out at a cafe, we could have gone out to the galleries, walking distance from my old apartment, that I could have explored. About 5 or 6 different galleries I could have taken a jeepney to, or just walked to from my old building. I never knew that because of paralysis and the lack of interest in discovery, whether it's self-discovery or just discovering the world around me. So, a good way to get over your impulsiveness and to explore, besides sitting quietly and letting your thoughts disperse, this allows the insights to come naturally instead of straining your mind. The other thing you can do is translate that exact same concept to walking. Just step outside and walk, explore. No purpose. Don't go there saying, I will walk in this direction and I will get this drink at a cafe. I will sit down there and I will come back at this time. No, don't set a time, don't set a destination, just go and explore. Don't look for anything in particular. When you explore, all sorts of things will come to mind. Your thoughts will also stir, especially if you have kinetic intelligence, where when you're walking or pacing, you're able to think and process better. So remember, if there's one thing you can take from this, don't be impulsive, be patient with yourself, and explore, whether it's within or around you. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.